Jay had always felt like an outsider on the Unity arc. It was a huge spaceship flying through the stars, home to many different alien species. He was one of the few humans on board, a skilled engineer known for fixing systems that others gave up on. But even with all his talent, he often felt invisible, especially around Liara. Liara was not just any alien. She was a member of the Alari, a tall, graceful, and intelligent species known for their calm emotions and advanced minds. She had pale silver skin, glowing blue eyes, and moved like water. Everyone admired her. Jay, too. He had worked beside her for months, repairing machines, adjusting power cores, and sharing quiet moments in the lab. He thought they were getting close. She even started asking him questions about Earth, about emotions, about why humans laughed so much. He believed she was curious, maybe even interested. So one day he gathered the courage to speak. "I know we're different," he told her, standing awkwardly by the control panel. "But I feel something when I'm around you. I just needed you to know." Liara didn't speak for a long time. Her eyes, usually calm, blinked once. Then she replied, "We are not compatible, Jay. Not physically, not emotionally. It would not work." Her words were soft, but they hit hard. Jay nodded quickly, trying to hide the hurt on his face. "Right. Of course," he said. I misunderstood. Forget I said anything." He walked away before she could say anything more. And she didn't. That night, the Unity arc flew near a dangerous region of space. A sudden energy wave hit the ship. The lights flickered, alarms screamed, and the main power core began to overload. If it exploded, everyone on board would die. Jay rushed toward the engine bay. No one else was nearby. Others were trapped or unable to move through the damaged corridors. The core was glowing red-hot. Coolant systems had failed. He had only minutes. He grabbed his tools and began working fast. His shirt stuck to his back with sweat as he pulled off panels, reconnected wires, and typed emergency commands into the console. Sparks flew, and smoke burned his eyes, but he kept going. Above him, hidden in the shadows, Liara had followed silently. She didn't know why she was there. Maybe it was guilt, maybe curiosity. But when she saw him risking his life, for everyone, her breath caught. He didn't stop to protect himself. He didn't ask for help. He just acted. When the core finally calmed, Jay dropped to his knees, coughing from the smoke. His hands were burned, and his body shook from exhaustion. But the ship was safe. Liara stepped closer, quietly. She watched. Him, this human who had just saved them all. Her heart, something her people rarely listened to, beat faster. Maybe he wasn't so different after all. Jay woke up in the medical bay with a dull ache in his chest and a soft beeping sound beside him. His hands were wrapped in bandages and his arms felt heavy. A nurse bot hovered nearby, checking his vitals. He blinked slowly, trying to remember how he got here. Then it came back. The power core, the heat, the smoke. He sighed. At least the ship didn't explode. The door slid open with a soft whoosh. He turned his head and was surprised to see Liara standing there. Her expression was unreadable as always, but she walked in slowly and stood beside his bed. "You should not have done that," she said, her voice calm but quiet. Jay gave a tired smile. Someone had to. The core would have taken the whole ship with it. "There were protocols," she replied. "They were too slow," Jay said. "And people would have died." Liara didn't respond right away. She looked at his bandaged hands. "You're injured." "I'll heal," he said. There was a long silence between them. Jay stared at the ceiling. He still remembered her words from earlier. "We are not compatible." That hurt more than the burns. "You didn't come here just to scold me," Jay finally said. She looked away, as if unsure how to answer. "I observed you during the event," she said. "Your behavior surprised me." "Surprised how?" he asked. "You acted without logic, without a safety plan. It was reckless, but it saved everyone." She paused, then added softly, "I didn't expect that." Jay chuckled weakly. Humans are full of surprises. Liara didn't smile, but her eyes lingered on him a moment longer. Your body handled heat levels above what we believed was safe for your species. And your decision-making under pressure was effective. Thanks, he said. I think that's the closest thing to a compliment I'll ever get from you. She tilted her head slightly. Do you always make light of serious situations? It helps, he said with a shrug. Pain feels smaller when you laugh. She didn't answer that either. Instead, she reached into her pocket and placed a small silver device on the table beside him. This is a data crystal. I've been studying species compatibility for months. I thought I had all the answers, but last night changed things. Jay looked at the device but didn't touch it. I ran some emotional simulations, she continued. It's part of our research, neural mapping between species. I've never shared those results with anyone. Why me? He asked. Because I want to run them again, she said. With you. Properly. Jay stared at her in surprise. I thought we weren't compatible. Liara looked at him, and for the first time since he met her, she didn't seem so distant. That's what I believed, but now I think I may have been wrong. She turned to leave, pausing at the door. Rest, Jay. We'll talk more when you recover. The door closed behind her. Jay lay back on the bed, heart pounding. Not from fear, but from something else. Maybe the gap between them wasn't as wide as it seemed. Jay left the medical bay 2 days later, his hand still healing but strong enough to work again. He returned to the lab, unsure of what to expect. Things felt different now. Not just in the air, but in the way Liara looked at him. She didn't ignore him like before. She didn't avoid eye contact. In fact, she watched him closely, not with judgment, but with curiosity. That morning, Liara invited him to her private lab. He had never been there before. The room was quiet and clean, filled with advanced equipment that glowed softly. A large screen displayed strange graphs and waves. Jay stood awkwardly near the door, feeling out of place. Liara turned from her console and faced him. Thank you for coming, she said. Jay nodded. You said something about simulations? Yes, she replied. After what I saw during the core crisis, I reviewed my earlier data. I've studied cross-species interaction patterns for 2 years now, but I never included humans deeply. I thought your kind was too unpredictable. He chuckled. That sounds about right, but then I saw you act with both logic and emotion, she said. It confused me, and it made me wonder if compatibility is more than matching cells or neural waves. Jay moved closer, interested. So, what did you find? She tapped a button, and the screen lit up with a moving pattern of lines. 2 separate waves, one was hers and the other, from a sample she had taken during their brief neural test, was his. At first, she said, I expected interference. Our waves should have clashed, but something happened that I did not predict. Jay stared at the screen. The 2 lines, hers and his, began syncing in rhythm. They matched? He asked. Yes, she said. Not perfectly, but enough to suggest some kind of deeper resonance. Emotional, mental, even sensory. Jay looked at her. So we're not as different as you thought. Liara hesitated. It's not just science now. I felt something during that test. He raised an eyebrow. What did you feel? She didn't answer right away. She took a slow breath. Warmth, strength, openness, things my species usually suppress, but I didn't want to let go of it. Jay smiled gently. You don't have to. She looked up, unsure. But what if this changes everything I believe about compatibility? Then maybe it's time to change, he said softly. She stepped back, turning to the console. I want to run one more test, a deeper link. No machines, just presence, close distance, natural emotion. Jay tilted his head. Like, just talking? Yes, she replied. Face to face, no data screens, no equipment, just us. He nodded. I'm okay with that. She turned and met his eyes. For the first time, her voice had a small tremble. Are you sure? Jay stepped forward, closing the gap between them. I've always been sure, Liara, you just didn't see it before. She looked at him, really looked at him, and this time her gaze didn't turn away. They stood in silence, a new understanding forming between them. No sparks flew, no dramatic music played, just the quiet feeling that maybe, against all odds, something real was starting to grow. The next evening, the lab was quiet again, but this time it wasn't filled with cold data or machines. Instead, two chairs faced each other in the center of the room. No tools, no screens, just Jay and Liara. Liara had set the place this way, on purpose. She had spent her whole life depending on numbers and logic, but now she was trying something different, something human. Jay entered, his movements a little cautious. He saw the setup and smiled. No machines this time? Liara nodded. Just conversation, as we agreed. He sat down across from her. So, how does this test work? She folded her hands. We talk. We share thoughts. And I will observe what happens, internally. I've adjusted my neural senses to monitor changes in emotion. Jay laughed. So I just have to be myself? That would be ideal, she said with a tiny smirk. Start by telling me, why did you really try to get close to me? He took a breath and leaned back slightly. Honestly? At first it was your intelligence. You were calm, focused, and knew what you were doing, but later, I noticed little things, like how you paused before responding, how you sometimes watched the stars in silence. I realized you weren't as cold as you pretended to be. Liara's gaze didn't move. She was listening closely. Jay continued. You cared about others, even if you didn't show it the way humans do. And the more I saw that, the more I liked being around you. Liara lowered her eyes for a moment. My people don't express feelings often. We believe emotions cloud judgment. Maybe, Jay said. But emotions also connect people. She nodded slowly. When I watched you fix the power core, I felt something I hadn't felt before. Fear that you might not make it, and after a strange pull, like I wanted to understand you more. Jay smiled. That's not strange, that's normal. For humans, yes, she said. But for me, it was new. A pause settled between them. Then Liara asked, would you allow me to test something further? Jay raised an eyebrow. What kind of test? She stood up and walked over to him. Physical closeness, no contact, just presence. I want to see how our energy changes. Jay didn't move. All right. She stepped close, so close he could feel her warmth. They stood there, almost shoulder to shoulder. Her eyes studied his face, and she tilted her head. My heart rate is increasing, she said softly. This is unusual. Jay grinned. Mine, too. She looked into his eyes. You're not afraid. Should I be? He asked. No, she replied. I just expected you to feel awkward or unsure. I'm not, Jay said gently, because I know what I feel. I'm not here to impress you. I'm here because I care. Her expression softened. Then, suddenly her hand lifted, hesitated, and stopped just short of touching his chest. I'm feeling something strange again, she whispered. Not fear, not logic, something in between. Jay looked at her hand. That's how you know it's real. She didn't touch him, but she didn't pull away either. In that quiet moment, the gap between species, rules, and beliefs began to shrink. 2 days after their quiet moment in the lab, a warning alert echoed through the Unity arc. The ship had entered a storm zone, a dangerous field of charged particles moving through space. The shields were failing, and the systems were under stress. Jay rushed to the control deck with other crew members. Sparks flew from the ceiling panels and the floor vibrated under their feet. This storm was stronger than anyone had expected. The captain shouted, "Stabilize the lower hull. Radiation is building." Jay didn't wait for orders. He grabbed his toolkit and ran toward the lower sector of the ship. Along the way, he saw younger crew members frozen in fear. Some alien children who had been helping with simple tasks now stood shaking, unsure what to do. He stopped. Without a second thought, he took off his protective jacket and wrapped it around a young alien girl with green skin and wide eyes. "Stay down and breathe slow," Jay said. "I'll handle it." Then he kept moving through the corridor where sparks danced and alarms wailed. He reached the shield control room and saw the power conduits were overloading. If they burst, part of the ship could lose oxygen. He got to work even as smoke filled the room. He didn't think about pain, heat, or danger. He just focused. Up above, in the observation room, Liara was watching through the security monitors. She saw everything. How he helped others first, how he ignored his own safety, and how his hands moved quickly, even with burns. Something inside her chest tightened again. This wasn't just bravery. This was something deeper. "Why does he do this?" she whispered to herself. "What drives a human to give so much?" She couldn't stand still anymore. She rushed from the observation deck and made her way to the control room. When she arrived, Jay was on the floor, coughing. The storm had passed, but the air was thick with smoke. His face was covered in sweat, and his shirt was torn and burned on the side. But he was smiling. "I stopped the overload," he said between breaths. "The ship's safe." Liara knelt beside him and looked into his tired eyes. "You could have died." "But I didn't," he said with a grin. "And neither did anyone else." She reached out, her hand hovering over his chest. "Why do you always risk yourself for others?" "Because if I don't," he said slowly, "then who will?" Her hand gently touched the edge of his torn shirt. Her fingers stopped at the burned cloth. She didn't pull away this time. "You are not like others I've known," she said. Jay looked at her, surprised. "Is that a compliment?" She nodded softly. "It's the truth." He gave a small laugh, but then winced. "I think I need medical again." Liara helped him stand. "Come, I'll walk with you." As they moved through the quiet hallway, Liara looked at his side again, the fabric barely hanging onto his chest, and in her mind, one thought repeated. "We are more compatible than I believed." Jay sat on the small bed in his cabin, still feeling the burn from the radiation storm. His shirt was torn where Liara had touched earlier, and the cool air brushed over his injured skin. He thought the day couldn't get any more surprising. Then, the door slid open quietly. Liara stood there, her usual calm replaced with something softer. Her silver skin seemed to glow faintly under the cabin lights, and her blue eyes held a strange mix of emotions Jay hadn't seen before. "I came to check on you," she said softly. Jay smiled, surprised. "Thanks. I'm all right, mostly." She stepped inside and closed the door behind her. The room felt smaller with her there, but in a good way. "I've been thinking about what happened," she began, her voice low. Jay looked at her, waiting. She took a small step closer and said, "I told you we were not compatible. That was a mistake. I was wrong." Jay's eyes widened. "Really?" "Yes," she said. And then she did something unexpected. She reached out and grabbed the edge of his shirt near the burn marks and ripped it off completely. Jay blinked, in shock but didn't move. Liara looked at his chest, her fingers tracing the red marks left by the storm. She was silent for a moment, then her voice softened. "Your skin is scarred here," she said. "But you didn't complain. You didn't hide your pain." Jay smiled weakly. "I don't believe in hiding pain. It shows what I've been through." Her fingers lingered on his chest. "You are stronger than any data or theory can show. Stronger than I expected." Jay looked into her eyes. For the first time, he saw real warmth, not just logic or curiosity. Liara took a deep breath and said quietly, "I feel something new. Something I don't understand fully yet, but I want to learn." Jay reached out and gently held her hand. "We can learn together." Her eyes glowed softly, and she gave a small nod. Then, without warning, she leaned in closer. Jay could feel her breath soft and steady. "I was afraid," she whispered. "Afraid to admit that I need you." Jay smiled. "You don't have to be afraid anymore." Their eyes met, and in that moment, the distance between their worlds seemed to vanish. The news of Liara's change spread quickly through the Unity arc. The quiet scientist who once said they were not compatible had openly admitted she was wrong, and she had done it in front of everyone. Jay and Liara worked side by side more often now. Their partnership became a symbol of hope and strength for the whole ship. Humans and Alari, so different, yet united. One day, as the ship floated peacefully among the stars, the captain called a meeting. The crew gathered in the main hall, aliens of all kinds, humans included. The captain smiled warmly. "Today we celebrate not just the survival of the Unity arc, but the spirit of true cooperation. Jay and Liara have shown us that even the greatest differences can be overcome." Applause filled the room. Liara stood tall beside Jay, her hand lightly resting on his arm. The respect in the room was clear. No one doubted their bond. Later they stood before the large observation window, watching the endless stars. Liara looked at Jay, her eyes soft. "I once believed my people's way was the only way. Logic over feelings. Distance over closeness," Jay smiled gently. "And now?" "Now," she said, "I see the power in connection, in caring, in facing challenges not alone, but together." Jay took her hand. "That's what makes us strong, not just our minds but our hearts." She squeezed his hand. "Thank you for showing me." He looked at the stars, then back at her. "We have a new project. To build better alliances between species. To teach others that compatibility is more than science. It is understanding." Liara nodded. "Together, we will rewrite what it means to be compatible." The ship hummed softly around them. The future was uncertain, but one thing was sure. Unity was stronger than any difference. End of Part 7.